Hey, welcome back to the channel. Thanks so much for checking out this video. Hope you're having a fantastic day. If this is your first time here, welcome. Your second time, third time, whatever it is, welcome back. I appreciate you checking them out again. If you are enjoying the content, please smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. It really helps out a lot. I want to dig into well, it wasn't really the last shot, but it was the last play call set up from a timeout for the Indiana Fever against the Washington Mystics today, where when it was a 5 point game, we got 16 seconds left. So they need a bucket. They're looking for a three. But again, the key is you have to get a bucket right away. Right away. Now, as we all know with Christie sides, for some reason in these situations, as I've done in previous videos and others have pointed out to me in other games, when there is a last shot scenario like this, and you're talking about it's a close game, there's under 20 seconds left or whatever, Christie sides either refuses refuses to run a play for Caitlin Clark, or she's actually incapable within her skill set to create a play for Caitlin Clark. And it really doesn't matter which one it is; they're both fireable offenses. So we're gonna run through this play a little bit, and then and then uh, and then we'll talk about it. Let's see if I can get this big screen for you. Um, Now here the ball, I couldn't find anything sooner. The ball's already inbounds. It was inbounded with, I don't know, it was 15, 16 seconds, like something like that. So we've got Katie Lou here with the ball. You've got up top, you got Mitchell coming off a Boston screen. Okay, so we're gonna run, boom. Now this looks almost like if Mitchell can't shoot, we're going to give the ball to Boston for a three. So Mitchell, choice one, Boston, choice two, almost turns it over. Boston grabs it, goes back to Mitchell, and then she steps back and launches an awful, awful shot. So that's bad all the way around. So let's go through this. Okay. First of all, with the way this happens, if we watch Clark coming over here, okay, first of all, let's stop it right there. Now Mitchell's going to Boston. You actually have a double happening over there. You have look at all the space in the middle of the court, and you have Clark with one defender on her. Melissa Smith has her defender occupied, so she's actually that defender under the basket is not going to get out on Clark quickly. There's just no way. So we could have Clark cutting here, but unfortunately the ball's already gone in this situation. And we go to Boston. Now let's play that through. That defender falls down. Okay, first of all, again, they've already wasted way too much time. This is 6 seconds are gone. You're down by five. This has to be an out of bounds play designed to get a shot right away, right away. And as any good coach will tell you, with the amount of time left in a 5 point game, you design the play, you look for the three. If you don't get it right away, you take the layup because you should be able to get a quick layup out of it. So, okay, we go back to Mitchell there. Now, as is typical of Christie side's offenses in general in the half court, you got a bunch of players standing around on the perimeter with no movement. So this player is just getting up. You have Samuelson here. You've got Mitchell covered. You've already wasted half the amount of time you have left in the game. So, at this point, not a whole lot matters. But and again, this is because they don't have anything run. So these players they don't know what to do now. They don't have anything to do because first of all, Samuelson could be cutting and Mitchell could play a left-handed bounce pass and we go get the quick layup because boom, that's going to be a 2-on-1. Or Katie Lou comes and sets a screen for Caitlin Clark to come around and take the deep three right away from around from the middle of the court there, something like that. But they don't have any options because there's nothing drawn up. We watch this, there's nothing drawn up. Look at them all standing. They're all just standing, and it's going to be Mitchell's going to take that shot. Absolutely ridiculous. And here are a couple of the other problems I have with it. Now, as I mentioned, we have the situation where she refuses or is incapable of drawing up a play at the end of a game when you need a bucket for Caitlin Clark. Because the other thing you have there, if you design that play, oh, I don't care how many screens you set for Caitlin Clark to get that ball right away off the inbounds pass, look for the quick three. If not, you pick and roll with Boston, or you have Boston go to the basket right away, and you get because Caitlin will make that decision if she doesn't have that open three right away. Pick and roll with Boston, or Boston just goes right to the hoop depending on how the defense is playing. Caitlin fires or the pass, you get the quick two. And now down three with say 12 seconds left is a lot better than still down five with how many seconds did we end up having left in this at the end of this thing? I don't want to play it all the way through again, but it was like what, 5 or 6 seconds? I mean, they basically wasted when you're down five in a two possession game like that, that shot has to happen almost immediately. It's you have the three right away or you're going to the basket. And maybe you'll even get fouled. They're either going to give you the layup, right? That's the thing. The defense will give you the layup in that situation because they don't want to give you the old fashioned three. Or they will make that mistake and foul you, and then you get some free throws with the clock stopped. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is at this point in the game, and I've talked about this before, the good and bad with Mitchell is when she's a streaky shooter, so she can light it up quickly when she's hot. When she's not hot, it's a net negative for the team because she doesn't do a lot of other things. So keep in mind at this point of the game, designing this play, Clark has had a monster game. She's 5 for 9 from three. Lexi Hull's 1 for 1 from three. Katie Lou is 2 for 4 from three. Kelsey Mitchell at this point in time was 0 for 7 from behind the arc. 0 for 7. And Boston, because again, it looks like the second option was Boston. Now, it could have been just that's where the double came from, but the way the play was designed, that's where you were going to get the double. So it makes sense, especially since they're thinking, well, you'd rather give that three up to Boston than give it up to Mitchell, Samuelson, or Caitlin Clark, which were the other three players out in the perimeter. So you're going to get that look. Boston had played 20 minutes because of her foul trouble. She sat a lot before this. She had only taken 4 shots. She was 3 for 4. None of them were from three. But that's the play you're going to design. That's the play you're going to design. And again, the offense in general, this is how it looks in the half court. Way too much standing around. Way too much standing around. And I have to tell you, and it's nothing against Aaliyah. This is just situational. Because like I've praised Aaliyah before. I think she's grown so much since the beginning of the season as a player. I think the pick and roll has become something that's very effective. While we still got to get better at finishing at the rim, she has gotten better at finishing at the rim, right? There's still more room for improvement, but it has gotten a lot better. So just situational with everything that had gone on because this was one of those games that was a bit for a struggle for her because of the foul trouble. She never could really get going. In those only 20 minutes, she got off 4 shots, but she had 5 turnovers. So those at least a few of those were going to be shot opportunities that she normally gets. So I wasn't thrilled with putting her back in when they did because the comeback had happened without her. The big run had happened without her. So why mess with it? And the other thing is with the 5 fouls, she wasn't going to really D up. And if you remember when she went back in almost immediately, I think it was the Mystics' first possession with Aaliyah Boston in there, they went right at her and got an easy layup because AB wasn't being aggressive with her defense, which I understand. But it's not like she had been hot offensively. That you're going to say, oh well, if they go at her, she's not going to D, but we're going to get a benefit out of it because of her offensive play. But again, she took 4 shots, and I think one was actually after that. It was actually a trade-off. To give her credit, they came right back, and Boston got the basket. But they were not in a situation where trading baskets was going to help them because they were losing. So the way they had already played in the fourth quarter, and the fact that Washington would just go at Aaliyah defensively, it didn't really make a lot of sense to put her back in the game at that time. Um, I think the end of the game, with everything taken into consideration, should have been Katie Lou Kelsey Mitchell, because and that's the other thing too, real quick. I would have rather had if the three out there right away. If you're giving the ball to Mitchell, I would have rather had her drive to the hoop. Look, Kelsey Mitchell's explosive, and again, just like Boston, it needs to get better. But she's gotten better finishing at the rim. So when she got that ball first time before even trying to go to Boston, and she didn't have that shot, pump fake. Because again, if you look where their spacing was, and that one player that fell down, if I even look at the beginning of this, if we go all the way back to here, right? Look at she's around the player because of the pick, and she's got Olsen on her, and she has nothing. I'm going to blow this up for you. Nothing in. Look at the middle of the court. Nothing because Katie Lou's covered here, all the way out on Clark over here. She's got her defender beat because of the pick. She's got the big center who's not very mobile coming out on her, and Kelsey Mitchell with the ball. Melissa Smith has inside position on the player guarding her, who's given her separation, and she's already going to the basket. So two things should have happened here. Kelsey drives all the way to the basket, and Melissa helps out by just staying in front of her defender as she goes to the basket, or she whips this pass to Melissa Smith. Sorry, which by the way, if you reverse Mitchell and Clark, the way the play should have been drawn up, Caitlin Clark hits Melissa Smith on that cut. They get a quick two. There's still 13 seconds left, and they're only down three. Bam. Okay? Just bad. That's bad coaching, but it's also bad decision making by Kelsey Mitchell there. And again, Caitlin Clark's not going to make that mistake. I don't think in that situation. I shouldn't say she's not, but it's more unlikely with her ball distribution and the way she sees the floor that she will make that same mistake. So, and then my other players, so we would have had Katie Lou, Kelsey Mitchell. I would have had Lexi Hull still in, obviously Caitlin Clark and Alyssa Smith, and I would not have had Boston in at this situation. Nothing against Boston. It's just because of the way the game had gone. To that point, by the way, actually, I saw in a couple places. I don't have confirmation, but it'd be a weird thing for people to misinform you of. Caitlin Clark showed up at the game at 7:40 a.m. and the coach strolled in at 9 a.m. So let's dig into just in general now with Christie Sides. Look, everything that's going on. If this was an NBA game, an NBA team, she would have been fired a long time ago. Unfortunately, I think the GM loves her. The owner doesn't really care either way, I don't think. Now, before I even get into this a little more, I will say this. Despite all the crazies in the comments about I'm this or I'm that, I try and be fair, and if there's something good that should be said and I know it, I will do my best to say it. And Christie Sides, I noticed from a lot of people, is getting heat on the lineup change. And hey, you just beat the New York Liberty. Why are you changing the lineup? And me, who's called for her to be fired all season long, is going to defend this. I saw the answer that she gave with regard to the lineup change, and she basically didn't want to talk about it. Now, from me and my experience is just, playing very low level and just coaching and refereeing and also just watching the sport my entire life, and my brother played and my father played, and all of that. What I got from Christie Size that everyone should get was the lineup change was a disciplinary thing. There was some sort of team rule violation, and we're keeping it in house. It's not for the public. We're dealing with it. This is how we're dealing with it. That's all that's going to be said on the matter. And it's not the first time. That's why I said you kind of know when you see a coach act in that way for a change like that, that is everybody's wondering why. I I would put betting money on disciplinary reasons. There was some team rule violation from Melissa Smith, and this is how it was handled. She was not going to start. No big deal. I mean, and I give her credit. I give her credit for doing it because in today's game, obviously, especially more so on the men because I'm going to say because of the money and especially guaranteed money, players have so much more leverage than they used to in terms of their behavior, and they get away with a lot more because the coaches don't really have any power. There are very few coaches who have the power to do something like that on the NBA side. You used to see that type of thing all the time. Now it doesn't happen. So I'm going to give Christie Sides credit one for doing it, and especially when she knows she's going to be questioned, especially when it came after the victory against the Liberty, but then also for not talking about it because it's not something that needs to be talked about. This is something that happened within the team that was a no-no, and the punishment is you're not going to start next game, and that's it. And we don't really need to know. So I'm gonna defend Christie's sides on that. That being said, I still think Christie sides needs to go. I think, and look, she's been around a long time in basketball, so someone will pick her up. She'll be assistant somewhere. I think that that's a very good role for her. Very good role for her. Now, some of the issues we talked about, and I think you saw it again today. This saw it last game, especially with that ridiculous call on Kelsey Mitchell by that official, who's literally right there when Kelsey Mitchell clearly saves the ball from going out. Easiest overrule on a challenge you would ever get, but Christie Size didn't challenge it. She doesn't challenge calls. I shouldn't even say that. She doesn't challenge the call she should challenge, and then because of that, she'll challenge the call she shouldn't. It seems to me like every single game, I see Katie Lou Samuelson at least one time looking over the bench and begging the coach for a challenge, just begging for it, and it just never happens. Offensively, again, that the half court offense is just it's non-existent. It kind of goes to what I was just showing you with that so-called play drawn up there at the end is there's a whole lot of standing around. The one thing in the half court offense that's been pretty darn effective was the Aaliyah Boston, Caitlin Clark two-player game, the little pick and roll. And I think we saw it one time today, and where we actually saw the pick and roll, the bounce pass to Boston, and then Clark went to the basket and got it back. And oh, I'm having a brain freeze right now as to why that happened. The play was stopped, and I can't remember. It's a foul called on somebody, I think, but it was it was nice to see. But that's the only time I even really remember the two-player game happening, or any of the pick and roll game happening with Clark and Boston. Now, granted, Boston did end up getting in foul trouble, but just didn't see it. Just didn't see it very much. So there's way too much standing around in the half court offense. So there weren't really any of those open three looks that they get pretty often in games. I think the only one I can remember is one time when Caitlin Clark in the first half worked the one-on-one game, drove all the way to the basket, and came back out from underneath the rim in the lane to fire a ball out to Katie Lou Samuelson at the top of the key. Actually, outside the three-point arc, but you know where I mean, top of the key, and got a three-point basket out of that. But she doesn't. We all know she doesn't call timeouts when she should when other teams are making a run. If I remember correctly, I believe today she called a timeout to disrupt her own team's run. Caitlin Clark taking shots off designed inbound plays at the end of games when they're important. As we already discussed, that happens game after game. Christie Sides will not call a play for Caitlin Clark. She has no effective defensive scheme. The players, as a team defense, seem very confused as to what's going on. And I can tell you, if you're not understanding the defense you're supposed to run, or it's ineffective and you're not trusting it, it can seem at times where you're just really bad as a defender. But if you don't fully understand what it is that's happening or what it is you're supposed to do, and you're thinking about it instead of reacting, you're going to look slow and you're going to look like a worse defender than you actually are. And I think if I have this right, Caitlin Clark is asked about it here. She's asked about the I think she actually asked about the lineup change, but you can listen to her talk. This is just a short clip where she actually talks about this.
I just think collectively we could have worked a little bit better together from a defensive schematical perspective of, what we needed to execute. And that goes for everybody, whether you came off the bench or whether you were in the starting lineup. Like we just didn't really execute defensively or really offensively until we got into the fourth quarter.
Okay, now did you hear that? Because that's kind of the first time I've really had a player talk about that in terms of the team defense. They weren't. Now she said they weren't executing. I don't really know what they look again slow and confused at times. So that's a big problem. And then the other thing she alluded to, which to me is even more key, is when she mentioned the fourth quarter. But yeah, so we've talked about this all year, and again, this is supposed to be a defensive coach, but they look completely unprepared defensively as a team. Their weak side rotations are non-existent or too slow. There's not proper help when there should be. Sometimes they're going over screens when they should be going under, vice versa, and all that. As I mentioned in a previous video, there's no answer for a simple backdoor cut. She probably cut the best individual defender on the team, which is Celeste Taylor. And then the other thing that Caitlin Clark uh, mentioned is about nothing working until the fourth quarter. It's true, right? Nothing really worked until they were down 21 in the fourth quarter. So what changed? Well, Clark Kent, sorry, Caitlin Clark put on her cape and she just ran and ran and ran. She took it to another level. She went hard to the hoop on everything, right? Like this was no longer even just normal transition and running, and she was getting the ball and she was just going all the way to the basket, and she was going to play at a pace that the defense could not match. She basically set aside everything else. She set aside offensive scheme. She set aside setting up teammates, and she just decided she was simply going to ball out, and the team can come along for the ride if they want to do so. Right? And here's the thing. The fourth quarter is one of the best quarters they've played all season, and it's how they need to play all the time. This is what this team is built for. If you're going to draft Caitlin Clark and she is going to be your point guard, this is the style of offense you run. Right? There's arguments made all the time about fitting players into a system or fitting a system around a player. And so this is where you fit a system around a player. Yes, absolutely. They need a more effective half court offense because you're not always going to be able to do what it is you want to do, but their offense should be built around the transition game and running because that is what they do the best. Even their bigs, even their bigs, that is what Boston has become very because they've figured it out that that's how they're going to get the easy buckets. It's not we're going to run and Caitlin's just going to shoot all the time. So Aaliyah Boston and Melissa Smith, they don't need a half court offense and bang in the paint and work really hard for those buckets in order to eat. They realize let's get a rebound, get the ball in Caitlin's hands as quickly as possible, and we're going to get up the court ahead of the defense, and we're still going to eat, and we're going to do it by getting easier buckets because we're just beating the other team down the court. Caitlin Clark played 9 minutes in the fourth quarter, 15 points in those 9 minutes, 3 assists, 2 steals, and a block. She was 4 of 6 from the field, 2 of 2 behind the 3-point arc, and 5 of 6 from the line. The fourth quarter showed what this team is capable of doing without Christie Sides being part of the equation because there was no until she messed it up with the play call out of bounds with 16 seconds left. Christie Sides didn't have anything to do with the fourth quarter. It was just Caitlin put it in another gear. It was we have no time to waste. We're never going to slow down. We're going to get to the basket as quickly as possible every single time we have the ball. Now, will they learn from that? Is that is are we going to see another step up with their transition game and this understanding that they need to run and run and run? Oh, and I looked it up. This is a team my dad used to talk about. It was, I believe, it was Arkansas back in the '80s. I think it was. The coach at the time was Nolan Richardson, and that's what Arkansas did. They ran and they ran and they ran. And by the way, they also full court press defensively. And so that's why Nolan Richardson called it 40 minutes of hell, because that's what they were going to put the other team through, because they were going to be all out all the time. Go, go, go. And that is what the Fever need to do. They need to go, go, go. Now, cleaning a lot of these things up defensively is going to help with that, because the better you are defensively, the more opportunities you're going to get to go, go, go. And those transitions are going to be easier, because you're not only just going to get rebounds, but you're also going to get steals, and you're going to force the other team into mistakes and give you opportunities to get out and run. But this is already a little longer than I thought it was going to be. I actually do want to do one more um, positive video on the game and sort of look at the, kind of an analysis of the good things that we saw that say, hey, yeah, this was a bad game and I don't feel great about it. However, it's a young team, and these are the things that, you know, are still getting better and will continue to still get better, which is a good thing. But I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for checking this out. I really do appreciate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will talk to you later.